All right. Welcome, everybody, to Standing for Truth. My name is Donny Budinsky, and I am your host and moderator for tonight's great carbon dating debate between Atheist Junior and Dr. Dino. They are no strangers to each other. This is debate chapter 6 between Atheist Junior and Kent. And I'm looking forward to this one. They always give us a good, solid, engaging debate to remember. And so if we could, gentlemen, let's get acquainted, get to know you guys a bit. For anybody in our live chat that might be unfamiliar with who you are. Atheist Junior, let's start with you. Last time you were here, if I'm not mistaken, was actually for a debate with Kent, the great whale evolution debate, if I remember correctly. So Atheist Junior, how have you been since then? And also tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I've been good. Yeah, my channel is Atheist Junior, and I do counter-apologetic stuff, mostly about like debunking young Earth creationist videos. I've done a ton of videos about Kent. Lately, I've been doing some more flat earther stuff. I've been trying to get into that. So yeah, that's about it for me.
Okay. AJ, appreciate that. Thank you for coming back here for yet another debate on an important, a very interesting topic. So I'm looking forward to this. Kent, good to have you back as well. Last time you were here was just a couple days ago for a debate on the scientific evidence for evolution with Austin Sims. And so, Kent, how have you been? Tell us a little bit about yourself and that arc that you're building over at Dinosaur Adventureland.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you. It's an honor to be with you again, Donny. My name's Kent Hovind. Let's see, I've been a Christian 56 years coming up this February. Gave my heart to the Lord when I was 16 years old, and I've been a ordained Baptist preacher now for 50 years. And I believe the Bible is true, and evolution is one of the dumbest and most dangerous religions in the world. We're building a Christian camp in Lenox, Alabama, straight north of Pensacola, 70 miles. We'll probably never be done. I'm always going to say we're building. We're now building a 1/3 scale model of Noah's Ark. It is amazing, Donnie. You got to come see this thing. 172 feet long when we're done, three levels. Going to teach all of, today we worked on building the moon pool. If you watch my Sunday message on, these are all my channels up here. Where did it go? This way, okay. We're on, let's see, Genesis Baptist Church on YouTube. We covered, showed a bunch of pictures of the Ark. You go back and watch Sunday's message and explained what a moon pool does and how that answers so many questions about the flood of Noah. Anyway, we're having a lot of fun around here. We have visitors come from all over the place. 78 countries now, people have come. Donnie, it's time for a Canadian to get down here. And AJ, I'd like to see AJ here. Give him a grand tour of the place. I think you'll see a lot of stuff you'd like.
That'd be fun. It'd be a privilege, especially this time of year when it's cold, snowy, gloomy. I'll have to make my way down there and see that new ark you're building, Kent. Would be very cool. So I appreciate the introduction. Thank you for joining us yet again for an important debate here. For anybody just joining us in the chat, what are we debating tonight? We are debating the question, is carbon dating reliable? AJ takes the affirmative, Kent takes the negative. Format. What do we got for you? We've got a 10-minute opening statement from both guests, followed by a 5-minute uninterrupted rebuttal. Then we're going to jump into a free-flowing discussion. So it's going to be laid back, easygoing, organic dialogue on the topic. Then we'll have a short closing statement for AJ and Kent to wrap up their thoughts and points. And then this is where we get you guys in the audience involved. We'll have a roughly 25-minute audience Q&A. So please, if you got a question regarding the creation evolution topic, send those in and we'll have some fun interacting with them. Okay, AJ, let's give you your 10-minute opening statement, and I'll get your slides up here. You just let me know when you're ready, and the floor is all yours.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Okay, so what is carbon dating? It is a form of radiometric dating. There's many forms, but carbon dating, the way it works is that living organisms constantly exchange carbon with their environment, like plants take in radioactive C14 from their photosynthesis process. Animals eat those plants, and then humans will eat plants or animals. So one way or another, we wind up with carbon-14 in our bodies. So living organisms constantly exchange carbon with their environment, maintaining a steady ratio of radioactive C14 to C12 that reflects the ratio in the atmosphere at that time. When the organism dies, it stops exchanging carbon and C14 begins to decay. By measuring the current C14 ratio and comparing it to modern levels, scientists can calculate how much has decayed and infer the time of death. So is carbon dating evidence for evolution? While carbon dating, while primarily used for dating relatively recent organic materials, about 50,000 years old maximum, indirectly supports evidence for evolution by helping establish the age of fossils and archaeological artifacts. So one way that it connects to evolution is establishing time frames for fossils. Carbon dating allows scientists to determine the age of fossils or artifacts that contain organic material. This places them in a specific time within the Earth's history. Knowing the age of a fossil helps situate it within the broader evolutionary timeline, confirming the gradual development of life over millions of years. And carbon dating corroborates the fossil record. And the fossil record is a primary line of evidence for evolution, showing how species have changed and diversified over time. Carbon dating helps validate the age of more recent fossils, ensuring they align with the sequence predicted by evolutionary theory. And one notable example of this is a fossil dated using carbon dating is the Shanidar Neanderthal fossils found in Iraq in the Shanidar cave. And these remains belong to Neanderthals who lived tens of thousands of years ago, and they included bones and associated materials like charcoal from ancient fire pits. So these are not completely fossilized bones, but they still have some of their organic material left in them. That's why they're able to be carbon dated. Calibrating other dating methods. So while carbon dating is limited to recent samples, it is used alongside other radiometric dating methods like potassium argon for older materials. And these build a consistent timeline for the evolutionary process. And carbon dating isn't the sole evidence for evolution. It plays a crucial role in confirming the timing and sequence of events in the evolutionary history of life. And combined with other dating methods and lines of evidence, it strengthens the scientific understanding of how life has evolved over time. So here we have a slide from Kent's seminar. It says the lower leg of the Fairbanks Creek mammoth had a radiocarbon age of 15,380 radiocarbon years, while its skin and flesh were 21,300 radiocarbon years. So this is saying that it's one mammoth. But if you check the actual source, the quaternary stratigraphic nomenclature in unglaciated central Alaska, professional paper, it shows that the two dates were two different animals that were tested 8 years apart. So the first mammoth was tested in 1940 and the second was 1948. Also, the bottom sample says hide soaked in glycerin by collector, date invalid. So I don't think that these were the same mammoth, but Kent has been presenting this slide for decades, and he's been told about this before, that this is likely not the same mammoth, but he continues to present this as if it's the same mammoth. I think this is a dishonest way of trying to debunk carbon dating. And we have another slide. Living mollusk shells were carbon dated as being 2,300 years old. So we never date living samples with radiometric dating. I think Kent knows this. That why would you carbon date something that's still alive? That doesn't make any sense. But he has these slides that talk about dating living specimens. And if you look, Science, 1963, volume 141, that's the source from this slide. The name of this source is Radiocarbon Dating Fictitious Results with Mollusk Shells. So this was a paper that was done to show how dating marine animals that live in the water, doesn't work with carbon dating. It shows that modern mollusk shells from rivers can have anomalous radiocarbon ages owing mainly to incorporation of inactive C14 carbon from humus, probably through the food web, as well as the pathway of carbon dioxide from humus decay. And consequent errors of shell radiocarbon dates may be as large as several thousand years for river shells. So this is something that scientists in the lab doing carbon dating, they know about this. It's a known limitation of the method. But Kent is presenting this as if this is evidence that the method is just invalid outright. But scientists know about this. The people who do radiocarbon dating and these other dating methods, they know about the limitations. So if you use the method wrong, you're going to get a wrong result. It's like using a ruler to measure 15 miles. You're not going to be able to do it. it's not going to work, or it's going to give you a wrong result. That doesn't mean that the method itself is invalid. And here we have another slide. C14 supports our theories. We put it in the main text. If it does not entirely contradict them, we put it in a footnote. And if it is completely out of date, we just drop it. So if you'll notice here, the source says that this is the Institute of Egyptology. And let's look at the full quote. C14 dating was being discussed at a symposium on the prehistory of the Nile Valley. A famous American colleague, Professor Brew, briefly summarized a common attitude among archaeologists towards it as it follows. If a C14 date supports our theories, we put it in the main text. If it does not entirely contradict them, we put in a footnote. And if it is completely out of date, we just drop it. Few archaeologists who have concerned themselves with absolute chronology are innocent of having sometimes applied this method. So this is specifically talking about how archaeologists use C14 dating. So when it says our theories, this isn't talking about the method as a whole, or the evolution theory as a whole, or the scientific method as a whole. This is just talking about archaeologists and the way that they date archaeological artifacts. And I think specifically talking about things from the Nile Valley in Egypt, because there are archaeological artifacts where they know the age of these things. So if they carbon date something that they find in Egypt, and they get a much older date, then they know, like we know how old things from ancient Egypt are. They're going to know that there's probably likely contamination in that sample. And how do we know the decay rates are constant? The laws of physics are consistent. Decay rates depend on fundamental physical constant, like the strength of the weak nuclear force, which governs radioactive decay. And these constants have been tested extensively. Cross-checking with other dating methods. Different radiometric dating methods like carbon-14, uranium-lead, and potassium-argon often agree on the age of the same sample, so you can cross-confirm with other dating methods. Observations of ancient light and nuclear processes. So light from distant supernovae show the same spectral fingerprints of radioactive decay as observed in laboratories today. And these supernovae occurred millions to billions of years ago, providing evidence that the decay rates have not changed over time. And natural nuclear reactors. In places like the Oklo Natural Nuclear Reactor, uranium underwent sustained fission reactions about 2 billion years ago. The isotopic ratios in the surrounding rock match what would be expected if decay rates were the same then as now. So this is a natural nuclear reactor that's formed within the Earth. It's the only example of something like this that has ever been found. And in all of the tests that have been done, we've never seen a decay rate change in this natural reactor. If Kent thinks that the decay rates aren't consistent, I'd like him to provide an example of that happening or explain how that could happen. And laboratory tests under extreme conditions. Decay rates have been tested under extreme conditions, such as high pressure, temperature, and electromagnetic fields. In nearly all cases, the rates remained unchanged with only extremely minor variations, far too small to affect dating methods. And like I was talking about, the Oklo Natural Nuclear Reactor is the only known natural nuclear reactor on Earth. The reactor is 1.7 billion years old and is operated for 150,000 years. Its decay rate has never been observed to change no matter how far back our measurements go. And how do you know the initial amount of C14 in a sample? You can cross-confirm it with tree rings, which is dendrochronology. Tree rings provide an annual record of carbon content stretching back thousands of years. Scientists measure the radioactive C14 in each ring to establish a precise historical baseline. Cross-referencing with ice cores and marine sediments and coral, and calibrating with known age artifacts. So like I was saying about the Egyptian artifacts, you can cross-confirm it with things where you know the date you already know what the date is. Radiocarbon dating has been tested on artifacts of known historical age, such as ancient Egyptian artifacts or materials from archaeological sites with documented ages. So is C14 dating reliable? A 23-year-old record of the measuring accuracy of the Copenhagen Radiocarbon Dating Laboratory has been provided through a blind test, and a total of 92 samples of oak were dated in the period from 1971 to 1993. And basically, the investigation showed that there were no major variations from 1971 to 1993 in the tests that they did. And this is 92 samples. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that this is good evidence that the method is reliable. In laboratories among scientists, there is no debate that C14 is reliable. But what I aim to prove in this opening statement in this debate is that Kent has misrepresented C14 dating in an attempt to bolster his argument against evolution being true. So that's going to complete my opening statement.
Okay. Thank you very much, Atheist Junior, for that roughly 10-minute opening statement. I'll reset the timer. And Kent, you've got 10 minutes as well for an opening statement. Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. The big question is much bigger than carbon dating. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Here, the Bible is claiming a historical record that God created it. If he created it, that simple, profound statement shows us that he owns it, and he created it for a purpose, and he makes the rules, and he can judge his creation. So when was this? There's only two theories so far been presented. Somebody made the world, i.e. God, okay? Or the world made itself. And there are those like AJ, it's in his name, Atheist Junior. He does not believe there's a God, so he's got to figure out another way for the world to make itself. Of course, there's always a few loonies out there saying, oh, and we're not really here. We just think we're here. You can forget them. But the current teaching in our schools is that the earth formed 4.5 billion years ago, a uniform ball of hot rock. So how do you explain? You have to have billions of years. The main purpose of this debate tonight on C14, or any dating method, we could have chosen potassium, argon, rubidium, strontium, lead-208, lead-206, it doesn't matter. They're all for one reason, to try to get billions of years available for their evolution religion to take place. They wish to reject God's word. See, this time is the pacifier that evolutionists rely on. If you try to take away time, they're going to scream like a baby. This is their passy to try to make, they have to have billions of years or it can't work. So carbon dating, this is the main crutch they lean on. It's time. They have to have billions of years, okay, to turn your frog to a prince. To fool students into believing the earth is billions of years old, they hide behind carbon dating and other dating methods of some radioactive material. It's the main support to prop up their stupid religion of evolution. Here's the periodic table. Carbon and nitrogen are right next to each other. Carbon is 12 and nitrogen is 14, atomic weight, okay? So how does radiocarbon form? AJ was right. Sunlight strikes the atmosphere and creates carbon-14 atoms. It's radioactive. It doesn't want to be carbon-14. It decays back to nitrogen, and in about 5,700 years, 5,730 years, half of it will decay back. Well, most of Earth's atmosphere, 300 miles thick, is within 10 miles, okay? Radiation from the sun strikes this atmosphere and produces radioactive carbon-14. It combines with oxygen to make carbon dioxide, and a little tiny bit of the CO2 in the air we're breathing is radioactive CO2. You and I are breathing it. We don't absorb it now, but the plants do. So the Earth's atmosphere is by far mostly nitrogen, a little bit of 21% oxygen, 0.06% carbon dioxide, and a very, very tiny amount of radioactive carbon-14. And even that is beginning to disintegrate right away. This combines with other C14, or carbon dioxide. So you got carbon dioxide, a little tiny bit of it is radioactive, most of it is not. There's a chart showing the gases of our atmosphere, mostly nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, other gases. Okay. Based on the provided research, C14 is a trace gas, making 1 to 1.5 atoms per 10 to the 12th atoms per billion. Okay, that's a very small percentage of the total CO2 in the atmosphere. The total CO2 concentration is about 420 parts per million. Assuming an average molecule weight of CO2, this corresponds to 0.04% of the total atmospheric gas. We're talking about a real tiny amount of gas, radioactive carbon-14. Okay? Carbon-14 constitutes an infinitesimally small percentage of the total CO2, likely on the order of 0.000001%. In summary, the percentage of CO2 in the atmosphere is that C14 is essentially negligible, hardly any of it. Likely in the range of a small amount, okay? What they learned, Willard Libby back in the late 40s and 50s, the primary guy gets the credit for this, cosmic rays bombard the atmosphere and they produce fast-moving neutrons. They collide with atoms of nitrogen and change it to carbon-14. Then it begins to decay back. Cosmic radiation converts about 21 pounds of nitrogen into C14 per year. 21 pounds scattered over the whole globe is negligible, like they said, okay? Let's see, sunspot cycle. It affects the C14 formation. Sometimes the sun has an 11-year cycle the sun goes through, more spots and less spots, and that affects the rate of production of C14. I don't know how you take that into account in your C14 dating, but let's pretend that you can, okay? Let's see. The Maunder minimum, let's see, I'll get to this one right here. The formation rate of C14 can be affected by the sun and even by the stars, by the radiation they produce. So we don't know that the rate of formation has always been consistent. Certainly you can't go back and check it in the past. The Earth's magnetic field affects radiation, affects the formation of C14. And we know the Earth's magnetic field is fluctuating and even moving around a little bit, okay? Let's see. Production rates vary because changes in the cosmic flux caused by heliospheric modulation, solar wind, and of great significance are due to variations in Earth's magnetic field. The geomagnetic field variations can affect the production of rate of C14. Google it, okay? So cosmic rays from the sun hit our atmosphere and take nitrogen and bang it around and beat it up into carbon-14. Most of them latch onto oxygen and become carbon dioxide. Plants absorb carbon dioxide and make it part of their tissue. Animals eat the plants and it gets into their tissue. Some CO2 is radioactive and unstable. It does not like being C14. Immediately begins to break back down into nitrogen and escapes. It decays. Based on many tests, it takes 5,730 years for half of the C14 to decay. That's the decay rate today. That's the only time it's been measured in the last 50 years. Tree ring provides snapshots of Earth's climate. Let's see. Researchers dated the remains and clothing of a hunter found frozen in the ice, known as Otzi the Iceman. They determined he died 5,300 years ago. His shoes above were made of leather, grass, and twine. Let's see. What are the limitations of C14 dating? University of Chicago. All dating methods have limits. Each works best for different types of problems. Radiocarbon dates for less than 60,000 years. Some sources say 50. I don't argue about that. They're easily contaminated. So to provide accurate dates, they must be clean and well preserved. Dirt and other matter must be washed off with water. But chemical treatments and other cleaning procedures are often needed because there are so few atoms to count. Even a little extra carbon will contaminate and throw off the results significantly. A 1,000,000-year-old sample contaminated by only a tiny amount of carbon could yield an invalid age of 40,000. So it can be contaminated. Be a tree ring detective. You can Google just all about tree rings, C14 dating. There's a lot on the internet about this topic, okay? C14, method of age determination, depends upon the decay to nitrogen of radiocarbon. Okay, I agree. Another wood sample prepared from an object recovered at an archaeological excavation gives a decay rate of 0.109 disintegrations per second per gram. What is the age of the object? This is a problem they solve, okay? And I can show you how they do the problem solving with this. University of Chicago. The invention of radiocarbon dating gives up to 60,000 years based on the fact that when they die, they stop taking in new C14, so they stop replacing what they had, which would keep them in equilibrium with the atmosphere. If the atmosphere currently has 0.000765%, probably all the animals and plants alive at that time also have that amount. A reasonable assumption, okay? When it dies, it stops eating or breathing, right? Nobody argues about that. So let's see. Starts with cosmic rays. We've been through all. I got a ton of stuff to go forever. Here's the basic idea. Radiometric dating would not even be feasible if they hadn't erected the geologic column first. AJ mentioned about it corroborating and supporting the fossil record. There is no fossil record. There are fossils, all from Noah's flood, probably, okay? Like I said, I can think of fossils are the best accurate method of dating the rocks in which they occur. I can think of no cases of radioactive decay being used to date fossils. So the carbon and nitrogen, this is where the battle takes on right here. A Geiger counter will pick up how many clicks per minute this thing is giving off as it breaks down. C14 is being produced by the sun, and it breaks down back to nitrogen. Half of it will break down in 5,700 years. So there's the photosynthesis formula. Plants make this part of their body. The plants are radioactive a little tiny bit, and so are the people. Probably during your lifetime, you've either eaten plants or eaten animals that have eaten plants, okay? That's our whole diet, okay? If you have C14, it will be in your body, and you could be carbon dated right now. We all would have a little bit of this in us. It's assumed that the percentage in the air today is the same in all living plants and animals. A reasonable assumption, but an assumption. So it's assumed the normal ratio would be today. The atmosphere has 0.0000765. Probably we do too. When it dies, it stops taking in any more. Fair enough. Good enough. So they're measuring the amount in the sample they're dating with the amount currently in the atmosphere. And here's the problem, okay? If half of it decays in 5,700 years, it can't get any more. It's going to go out of balance. So if it gives you this number, it's freshly dead or it's still alive. If it gives you this number, it's 5,700 years, 1 half-life, 2 half-lives, 3 half-lives. So it goes from a half to a fourth to an eighth to a 16th to not measurable. None of it should be measured after 40 to 50,000 years. It should all be gone. So they have a calibration curve they use. If you're getting 16 clicks per minute on your Geiger counter, we'll call it 0 years old. It's still alive. If you're getting 8 clicks per minute, it's been dead for 1 half-life. 4 clicks, that's half as much. 2 half-lives, 3 half-lives, etc. With their short 5,700-year life, no carbon should exist in carbon. No atom 14 atoms should exist in anything over 250,000 years. Yet it's proven impossible to find any natural source of carbon below the Pleistocene strata that does not contain significant amounts of C14. They've tried to eliminate this problem and they can't. Laboratories that know how to not have it be externally contaminated, they've tried and tried. Even for a dozen diamonds, they cannot be contaminated. These constitute very strong evidence the Earth is only thousands of years old. So it's based on some obvious assumptions. Okay, I want to get to one more thought here. Okay, let me get up here. Let's see, I did this one before. What AJ doesn't understand or doesn't want to understand about carbon-14 dating is that you don't know the amount that was in it to begin with. You cannot possibly know that. C14 has been found in fresh dinosaur and soft tissue in dinosaur bones. Yes. Well, then, it should have all decayed in less than 60,000 years. There should be none. They find carbon-14 in coal samples. Is C14 found in coal? Yep. All the coal samples have some in it. But yet they're teaching the kids in school that these layers of coal formed, 37 million to 318 million years ago. This is pure baloney. All the layers of coal formed in Noah's flood. The Bible says the scoffers would be willingly ignorant of how God made the heavens and the earth. Here's the whole secret. There used to be a crystalline canopy of ice above the atmosphere that would prevent most C14 from even forming. So the animals living during that time would have almost no C14 in them. When they die, they're buried by the flood or something. We dig them up 4,300 years later, and we find out, wow, they still have none in them. So they're going to date really old. Here's from a chem team of we'll do that when I get more time, how to determine the age, a radiocarbon age. It's all based on obvious assumptions, which I'll be glad to share with you next time. Go ahead.
All right. Kent, thank you very much for that opening statement. Gentlemen, that concludes our opening statements for tonight's great carbon dating debate. Appreciate the work and visuals in those presentations. We've now got several points and arguments on the table related to the topic to engage in a rebuttal. So it is going to be a fast-paced rebuttal. We've got roughly 5 minutes each. And before I hand it to you, though, AJ, we've got a busy chat, and I see questions flying in, so I do appreciate it. I am mostly caught up, but keep sending those in, and we'll have some fun engaging those in the audience Q&A. AJ, whenever you're ready, I will reset the timer and start it on your first word. Go ahead.
Okay. So as for the dichotomy between God creating the world, the earth, and the universe, or the earth making itself, I'd like for Kent to explain to me how something can make itself, because wouldn't it have to already exist in order to make itself? It doesn't really make sense to me. The idea of we're not actually here, again, I'd like Kent to disprove that. I'm curious as to why Kent thinks that I brought up the topic of carbon dating, or that carbon dating is cited by evolutionists because we need billions of years, when carbon dating only dates up to 50,000 years. So that doesn't really make sense. As for things affecting the rate of C14 formation in the atmosphere, it's not really about the rate of C14 formation that matters. Like, I don't disagree that there are factors that change how fast or slow it forms in the atmosphere. What's important is how much is in a given sample when that sample dies. And Kent's saying that C14 levels have only been measured in the past 50 years. I don't think that's true. And again, we can look at dendrochronology. We can look at tree rings to see a past record of carbon content. As for the topic of contamination, my question to Kent would be, do you think scientists are not aware of this problem? Like the people who do carbon dating, they're aware of these issues, like the risk of contamination and these assumptions that Kent talks about. I doubt that Kent is the only person who knows about these, and the scientists are just in the dark and are testing these samples without knowing that they might be contaminated, or that there are essentially some assumptions that might go into these dating methods. And again, I'd like Kent to address why he has slides that talk about a mammoth being dated when it was obviously 2 mammoths from the source, and why he has slides that talk about dating living organisms, like a living seal, a living mollusk, when from his own presentation, his own opening statement, he indicated that you only start to date something if it's been dead for a certain amount of time, if it is dead. We never date living samples. And on the topic of diamonds and coal containing carbon dating, the presence of C14 in coal could be explained by the fact that, again, if you date something that's outside of the dating range of C14, you're likely going to get bad results. So coal is a fossil fuel, so it's far older than the effective dating range. So you can also, again, have things like contamination. Coal deposits are often associated with uranium and thorium-rich rocks, which can emit neutrons, and these neutrons can interact with the C12 in the coal to form C14. So this can introduce trace amounts. That's one possible explanation. Laboratory background noise from the dating instruments, small amounts of C14 can happen from just the lab instruments themselves, and same thing with diamonds. Or just misinterpretation of the data itself. So coal and diamonds are much older than the dating range of C14. So if you're saying that using the method incorrectly is an indication of the method itself not working or being invalid, I would have to disagree with that. And that'll do it that's it for me. Donnie.
Thank you very much, AJ, for that 5-minute roughly rebuttal. We'll now hand it back to Kent. Kent, whenever you're ready, you also have a 5-minute rebuttal. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Let's see. Start. Okay. As far as the earth making itself, do you know of another option? You claim to be an atheist. There's no God. So how did the earth get here? It's here. Okay. We're sitting on it. How? Did it make it? Where did it come from? You guys don't want to answer that, okay? And you said it only goes back 50,000 years. Some of the points you made. Let's see. The 2 mammoths, I believe, that we mentioned in that one slide were from the same strata, which is the point you missed totally. If these 2 mammoths, even though they're dated 8 years apart, could be by different laboratories, if the mammoths are in the same strata, they should be giving the same age. I think they all died in the flood is what happened to them. Let me explain. Before the flood came, this time back here, the earth had a canopy overhead, preventing almost all C14 from even forming. So the animals had a very small amount. Let's say it's 4 clicks per minute, CPM, okay? We dig them up 4,368 years later and carbon date them. They've gone through 0.76 half-lives, so they should give 24 clicks per minute if you start with 32, the illustration I give, 32 to 16 to 8 to 4 to 2 to 1. Half disappears every 5,700 years. So they should give 24 clicks per minute based on today's 32 clicks per minute. If today's atmosphere gives 32 clicks per minute, these should give 24, but they actually give 3. So we're going to use today's ruler to measure these things and find out, wow, they're 14,000 years on the calibration curve because they're only getting 3 clicks per minute. That's because they started with 4. They didn't start with 32. They had a lower number to start with. The Bible says the scoffers are willingly ignorant of that flood and how the earth was created in the water and out of the water. The canopy overhead would prevent most C14 from forming. So people sit around college classrooms and scoff at the old Bible, the goat herder's manual, because they're smart, and they know the earth is older than 6,000 because of carbon dating. They're willingly ignorant of how God made the heavens and the earth. They don't understand. To use any radiometric dating method, any of them, you have to assume you know how much was in it when it died. You're taking the amount that's in an object today when it dies, 0.0000765%, and assuming the atmosphere's always had that. There is no possible way to know that thing, okay? Secondly, they assume the decay rate has never changed, and you admitted there's things that can change the decay rate, and there's been no contamination. You admitted there can be contamination. There can be contamination from the instruments they're working with right there. There can be contamination from the stars producing more while they're working on it, radiation coming in. There's no way you could prove any of those items. Coal seams are formed from the consolidation of ancient plant material over millions of years, okay? Plant is buried rapidly, and let's see, the weight of the overlying sediment compresses the material and turns it into coal. Let's see, what else did I want to get to another point here before I run out of time. I go through, and if you can't date a living, object, something is seriously wrong. Your thinking process is certainly wrong. You should be able to take anything containing carbon and date it. If you took a leaf off of a tree and carbon dated it, it should equal the number they're using for the amount in the atmosphere, because it's still breathing that atmosphere. You should be able to date any living object. You're trying to give an excuse for why it doesn't work. Here we go, slide number 1268. Let me get that one here. 1268, okay. The troubles of radiocarbon dating are undeniably deep and serious. Despite 35 years of technological refinement and better understanding, the underlying assumptions have been strongly challenged, and warnings are out that radiocarbon dating may soon find itself in a crisis situation. Continuing use of the method depends on a fix-it-as-we-go approach. Make an excuse for this one, excuse for that one, like you did tonight. Allowing for contamination here, fractionation there, and a calibration whenever possible. It should be no surprise that fully half the dates are rejected. So they carbon date something and say that can't be right, throw it out, date it again. Why would you reject any of the dates? The wonder, surely, is that the remaining half should be accepted. No matter how useful it is, radiocarbon method is still not capable of yielding accurate and reliable results. There are gross discrepancies. Chronology is uneven and relative, and the accepted dates are selected dates. This whole blessed thing is nothing but 13th century alchemy. It all depends upon which funny paper you read. I agree. Like I said, shells from living snails carbon dated 27,000 years old. It should give the same date, AJ. Don't make an excuse for it. 11 human skeletons, earliest known remains in the Western Hemisphere, dated by accelerated mass spectrometer. All 11 dated 5,000 years or less. Well, what happened here? And the two Colorado Creek mammoths.
10 seconds.
Okay. They were, I think, in the same strata is the point, okay? Side by side. So I go through this in my seminar, part 6. The whole purpose of this debate is for AJ to rescue time for his monkey to turn to a human. That's the whole purpose of all this. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, Kent, for that rebuttal. Gentlemen, that is our openings and rebuttals. We're now moving into a discussion. We'll make sure the discussion is more free-flowing and organic rather than a real strict cross-exam. Kent just ended with his rebuttal. Therefore, Atheist Junior, let's give you the opportunity to pick the first point or topic to go back and forth on in our discussion. Go ahead.
Okay. So no, it doesn't make any sense to date something that's still living, because like you said, it would still be intaking carbon. It would still be eating plants that contain C14. So the way that carbon dating is used is that an animal dies and then the C14 starts to decay. So if none of it has decayed, why would you even want to date something that's still alive to see how long it's been dead for?
You're completely missing the point deliberately, AJ. If you date something that's still alive, it should give you the same number you're using for your ruler to date anything else. The ruler they use, the amount they use, 0.000765%, should be found in living plants and animals. You're not actually dating it. You're checking the ruler to see if it works, and it doesn't work. Slide number 1182. Okay.
But that's not how they use the method, though. So it's not a valid criticism.
Okay, you're completely missing the point deliberately. If Earth's atmosphere today is 0.0000765%, which I agree it probably is, then the snail should have had that amount in his body. He didn't. Any living creature, you should carbon date yourself, and you would find 0.00765%, or else your ruler's broken. And that's what you don't want to admit.
You're using the ruler to try and measure 15 miles. You're using the method incorrectly. And like I showed, that paper from your own source showed the name of the paper was Fictitious Results with Mollusk Shells. And I assume it's the same with the snail. It's talking about how marine organisms can't be carbon dated either because of the way that carbon-14 is absorbed by marine organisms. So it's not used on living organisms and it's not used on marine organisms. But your criticism of C14 is saying it doesn't work because you can't date living organisms or living or mollusk shells. That's not how the method is used. So it's a dishonest way of trying to say that the method doesn't work, Ken.
Okay, now you just admitted it doesn't work on living things. It doesn't work on marine creatures, which is the vast majority of the fossils, okay? I don't know what percentage of the fossils found are marine organisms, but it's way over 50% of all the fossils found in the world. So if it doesn't work on those two, how do you know it works on the other ones? What gives you reason to believe it should work on something alive? Why wouldn't it?
No, because it's still alive, Kent. The way the method is... Yeah. Because you can cross-confirm it with other dating methods like tree rings and other radiometric dating methods. They match up with the dates. And it's not used to date fossils. It can be used to date bones that still have organic matter in them. But if something's completely fossilized, it's not used on those. So it has a pretty limited range of uses, I'll admit it. And again, I never said that decay rates of radioactive elements can change. So you're misrepresenting me there. I said that the rate of C14 forming can change.
By the radiation from the sun, by radiation from stars.
If I could stop you, Kent, you roboted out as in like your connection for probably about 5 seconds. Can you rewind a bit and then just reiterate the points you were making?
I don't know what's up on my slides there. Is that me? Oh, something else up there. I said, we know that it does not work on marine organisms, which is way over half the fossils found in the world. We know what you're saying. You know it doesn't work on living things. It should work on living things. It should work on anything. If you have to select which ruler you're going to use to measure these things, you could measure a mile with a 1-foot ruler. Your accuracy might be it might be quite not as accurate, but you're completely missing the point. A living organism should have what they say is in the atmosphere today. This is the ruler they're using. They're saying the atmosphere today has a certain amount of C14. I agree. Well, then the things alive should have that amount, or something isn't right. Can't you see that, AJ? Why can't you see it?
Why would you use a ruler to measure a mile, though? That doesn't really, it's not logical.
You're missing the point. Why wouldn't it work on a living object? Tell me. Would you say the living object should have the same amount of C14 as is in the atmosphere? And when they die, it starts to decay. So if they haven't died yet, it hasn't started to decay. So they should have the same amount as the atmosphere. And they don't.
No, I think that they do.
Well,
explain to me why they... Yeah, because it's a marine organism. So again, you're showing incorrect methods of how to use the method. You're saying, I'm going to use the method wrong, and that's my evidence that it doesn't work. It's super dishonest, like you're lying.
You're again, deliberately missing the point. It should work on anything if it's a legitimate ruler to measure things, because the marine organisms contain carbon-14. They got it from their diet like we did. And so why shouldn't it be the same? The whole world should have...
Why do you think it should work on anything, no matter how old it is? Is that what you think?
Well, they claim it has limits of 50,000 years, which is where all of it would have decayed, because you go through half to a fourth to an eighth to a 16th to can't make... You're already starting off with a real tiny amount and trying to measure that amount decaying. Okay, that's why they say limits of 50 to 60,000 years. But they do find radioactive carbon-14 in coal, which they claim is 30 million years old. I'm saying
exactly. It's way outside the dating range. Yeah, because you're using the method outside of its range.
Okay. I don't know how to explain it to you any other way. Okay. I think the audience is seeing clearly how dumb this is. Okay. It should work. It doesn't work on coal. Here we go. Slide number 1, 2, 3, 6. Okay. I'll show you again. Here's what they said. That scientists agree that coal, being a fossil fuel, should not contain measurable amounts of C14. Let's see. Some studies reported the small amounts of C14 in coal. In 2003, study found measurable amounts of C14 in 10 coal samples. C14 in coal, it shouldn't be there. Let's see. In 2003, researchers at Pennsylvania State University wanted to see if C14 could be detected in the coal. This test might be considered unusual because C14 decays fast and there shouldn't be any, okay? Yet the coal samples from the strata, allegedly ranging 37 million years to 318 million years, the lab results were clear. All 10 coal samples contain carbon-14 and similar amounts. This seriously undermines the evolutionary date for the rock strata and containing the coal. So instead of saying, hey, the method didn't work, why don't you say the coal isn't millions of years old? Has that thought ever crossed your little brain? Could it be that maybe the coal isn't that old, AJ? And maybe they're getting it right?
First off, I have a huge brain, first off. But aren't you the one who said that if you send one sample to 5 different labs, they'll get wildly different results? Why did the coal contain the same amount for all the samples?
I don't know that it contained the same amount. They said it did have some.
You just said that it had a similar amount for every sample.
Well, it's the same. Maybe it's because the same laboratory testing them, all Penn State University. I don't know. Let's find out what it costs, and I'll see if I can afford to. But if it's less than $20, I'll get. We got coal here. Birmingham's loaded with coal north of us here for 3 hours. We'll get some coal and we'll try that. A blind test. 10 different laboratories.
You're going to carbon. Okay. Well, they already did tests like that for like 20 years, and they didn't find wildly different results. But there have been human remains that have been dated between 280,000 and 350,000 years old. So I'm pretty sure that is your slide talking about human remains being 5,000 years old? Is that supposed to be proof that the Earth is 6,000 years old? Because they've found human remains that are older than that.
How do you know they're older than that?
Because of the dating method results. How do you know that your slide? Why do you believe the results for your slide when it says 5,000? Is that because you're cherry picking that date, even though you accuse carbon dating scientists of cherry picking dates?
Well, tonight we're talking about, is carbon dating reliable? I'm showing to everybody with half a brain cell working, it is not reliable. We know it doesn't work on some things for sure. It doesn't work on marine organisms. It doesn't work on living organisms. It can be contaminated. We don't know the decay rate's always been the same. We don't know the production rate's always been the same. And you don't know the starting point. If the Earth had a canopy of water overhead, like the Bible says, that would block out UV light, which would prevent C14. So the creatures living under that would be starting in an environment with almost no C14. Whereas we have 0.000765%. We got a lot of C14 compared to them. So we dig up those fossils, which probably all came from the flood. And they're all going to date really old because the starting point was less than it is today. I give some examples. I got way too many slides here. Would you agree that Mary Schweitzer found soft dinosaur tissue and they carbon dated it?
Hold on a second, Kent, because you have no evidence that there was a canopy of water around the Earth. And
well, we're not talking about that tonight.
You're the one that brought it up.
I got historical evidence. Okay, the historical evidence. The Bible says there was. That's historical record. What do you have to say there wasn't? Just you don't like it? Let's stick on the topic of C14. Why did dinosaur soft tissue have C14 in it?
I'm not sure that it did.
Well, here we go. I Googled this question. Has C14 been found in soft tissue of dinosaur bones? Here's the answer the computer gave me. Yes, C14 has been detected in soft tissue of some dinosaur bones. This discovery sparked significant interest and debate within the scientific community regarding the preservation of organic materials over millions of years. See, all they're debating is, how did it survive for millions of years? They're not even considering, maybe it's not millions of years. Duh. They don't even consider that. They know it's millions of years.
Maybe there was contamination in the sample.
There you
maybe
go.
There's something. Maybe you're using the method wrong.
Right, right. Are you willing to consider that maybe the dinosaurs are not millions of years old? Is that even a possibility in this argument?
No, because there's no evidence for that.
Okay, well, so you've already decided. Your mind is closed. You've
No,
already
well,
got a world.
Yeah, but
you
you believe that on
that
blind faith. You
No,
believe
yeah.
that you believe that because your book says it. I would prefer there's actually evidence for them being that old.
Well, this is a historical record.
You have evidence other than the Bible?
No, yes, we have carbon-14 still in dinosaur tissue. That is proof they are not millions of years old. Because it only goes to 60,000, it should all be gone. Goes from a half to a fourth to an eighth to a 16th to immeasurable at some point. All of the authorities agree 40, 50, 60,000 years is the max. It should all be gone. It's not gone in the dinosaur bones. So rather than pick at maybe the method failed, why don't you pick at maybe your theory is stupid? Maybe the dinosaurs are not millions of years old. Maybe the coal is not millions of years old. Maybe that's why it still has C14. Why won't that thought even cross your brain, AJ?
Because there's not good evidence for that.
I just gave you the evidence. It still has carbon-14.
So if you don't think C14 dating works, what's your alternative method? Like, how should we date things like archaeological artifacts?
You're switching topics without answering my question. Would it be feasible that maybe the theory is wrong that they're millions of years old? Since coal still contains it and dinosaur tissue still contains it, maybe they're young. Maybe everything is young. Is that even a possibility with your brain? Why won't you consider that?
Because there's lots of dates that are correct because they've been cross-confirmed by other methods and other lines of evidence.
You go right back to your script. You've said that about 4 times tonight. I've got to go back and count. So, so if dinosaur bones...
Excuse me of having a script, Ken. We all know that you're the one who has a script.
Oh, you definitely got a script you're going on, okay? If dinosaur tissue contains C14 and coal contains C14 and living snails contain C14, maybe C14 dating does work, and it's showing you that the Earth is not millions of years old, and dinosaurs did not live millions of years ago. And that ties right in with lots of other lines of evidence, like all the reported sightings of dinosaurs down through history, people slaying dragons, ancient artwork and pottery with dinosaurs on them. There's lots of evidence. You need to watch my video number 3. I think dinosaurs lived with man all along, and the C14 being found in their soft tissue is not a surprise to me at all. I don't have to excuse it. I can say, yeah, I believe that.
If C14 dating doesn't work, then why would it matter if coal has C14 in it and these other things have C14 in it? Why would it matter if the dating method doesn't work at all?
Well, this isn't, no, I'm not saying it doesn't work at all. I'm saying you have to understand the limitations. I'm saying you don't know what it started with. You don't know the decay rate's been the same. You don't know it's never been contaminated. I wouldn't trust it any further than I could throw a pig, okay? It's crazy. The Bible says at the end of it.
You're arguing the negative position that carbon dating is not reliable. That's your position in this debate.
I'm showing you it is not reliable. Why did it work?
So if it's not reliable, then why does it matter if there's C14 found in coal, in diamonds, or in dinosaur soft tissue? If it's incorrect anyway, how is that proof for your position?
That's exactly proof of my position. It should not be there, and it still is. So therefore, C14 dating is not reliable because in your religion, dinosaur bones should not have any, and coal should not have any. You've already decided. Coal formed in the Carboniferous era 50 million years ago, or whenever it is, and dinosaurs lived 70 million years ago. You've already decided, and it didn't work on that. But you're unwilling to consider maybe my whole basic philosophy is wrong. And I don't know why you don't want to consider that, but it is detected in dinosaur tissue. It is detected in coal, plain and simple. So my point is,
you're arguing that that's proof that it's less than 6,000 years old, right?
Either it's less than 6,000 or the dating method doesn't work. Either way, I win.
Okay, if the dating method doesn't work, then how can you use it to say that this thing is 6,000 years old?
I'm not using it to say it's 6,000 years old.
Yes, you are. You just said you were.
No, I'm using the Bible to say the Earth is 6,000 years old, and that's what we have a written historical record by people who were there, not you, and that's what they said. We know when pharaohs lived in Egypt because of written historical records. We know when Columbus discovered America because of written historical records. You don't want to trust this book. I understand why, okay? But the fact is, tonight, is radiocarbon reliable? Obviously, it's not reliable on living organisms. It's not reliable on marine organisms. It's not reliable on dinosaur tissue. It's not reliable on coal. What exactly is it reliable on?
Specimens that have already died that are younger than 50,000 years old.
So why did we get carbon-14 in dinosaurs and coal?
I already gave examples of why that could be found there. But what about the other dating methods that are used to date rock strata that say the Earth is millions or billions of years old?
Well, we have
Are we
another
discounting
debate
those
on that.
too?
Donnie, book another debate on potassium argon, uranium strontium. Which one do you want to do? Uranium decays to lead.
I'm just asking, are you discounting all of those too? Are those all wrong?
All dating methods, when you're taking an object that has something in it and that is decaying, you're assuming you know how much was in it when it started. Do you know how much was in the original, how much uranium it had to start with and slowly decayed to lead? Because we're digging it up today, watching how fast uranium decays to lead. That we can measure. And we're assuming we know what was in it when it died, or when it was, in the case of a rock, when it was buried. Okay? Well, you can't know that. We're assuming that decay rate's been the same. Oh, you can't.
You can cross-confirm it with tree rings. It's not an assumption, Kent.
Tree rings don't go back that far, AJ.
Yes, they do.
They go back millions of years?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying you
Okay,
can
how far back
cross-confirm carbon-14 dates with tree rings, with ice cores, and with coral.
Do you think the ice cores, each layer is a different year? Is that what you're saying? I show clearly on my video.
That's a different topic. That's a different
I
topic.
agree. But
Gentlemen, if I could jump in just to keep
Sure.
it as much as we can to the carbon dating, what I'd like to do, if I could, AJ, you mentioned that you presented a couple possible reasons why we find detectable levels of C14 in dinosaur bones, coal, and diamonds. And so I was wondering if you could re-present those or reiterate those points, and we'll allow Kent to engage them.
All right. Yeah, well, one example is that there can be contamination, surface contamination. Diamonds exposed to modern atmospheric carbon can absorb trace amounts on their surfaces. Laboratory contamination. So radiocarbon dating requires extremely sensitive instruments, making them susceptible to contamination from sources such as cleaning agents or handling. There's background noise in the measurements, like Kent said, radiocarbon dating relies on detecting very small amounts of C14 in a sample. So for diamonds, the observed C14 levels can fall within the background noise of the dating equipment. And another example I said is just misinterpretation of the data.
Okay, so surface contamination, lab contamination, background noise, and misinterpretation of the data, basically. Okay,
Yes.
Appreciate that, AJ. Kent, we'll throw it to you. Feel free to engage those points.
Well, obviously, he's admitting there are things that can cause a problem with. So how do you know which ones to accept? They have to match your geologic column, which does not exist. They have to match your religion, that a monkey or an amoeba turned to a human over millions of years. The problem is, even the way you cross-corroborate these things, all of those have fatal flaws, which we could have in another debate. We know, and you've admitted tonight, carbon dating does not work on quite a few different things. You have to select which ones you want to use it on. You have to already know it's less than 50,000 years old or it won't work. Why would you have to know such a thing? If it works, it works. Take a sample of dinosaur tissue to any lab and say, how old is it? Don't even tell them what it is. They should be able to carbon date it and say, well, this shows it to be 15 or 18 to 25,000 years old. They shouldn't even have to know where you found it or what it is. If it's a method that works, it works. And I'm telling
you're expecting it to be perfect, Kent. Why would you withhold information if you're trying to get something dated? It's like you're trying to you want them to get the date wrong.
No, I want to do an honest blind test. If I tell them, hey, this bone was found in this strata and I believe it's 80 million years old, I'll pay $2,000 for this test. Now come back with a number within 80,000, please. Okay. It's not a blind test, AJ. It's prejudiced. It's already prejudiced. Just simply take a sample of coal, break it up in same rock. We got a bunch here. Break it up into 10 pieces, give it to 10 laboratories. Tell me, how old is it? Simple question. How old is it? They should be able to date it with their mass spectrometer in a couple hours. How many clicks per minute are you getting? Here's a problem they have in a chemistry test.
Pretty sure it takes longer than that.
Okay. They find a sample of petrified wood has a decay rate of 6 counts per minute per gram. This is how they do it. It's the Geiger counter. Here it go, click, click, click. How many counts did you get per minute per gram? Okay. What's the age of the piece of wood? Well, they get 13.6 counts per minute today with living wood. So use this simple formula to how to find it. Okay, you can use the log if you like, other ways to do it. So they say it's 6,700 years old. Let's simplify it. A Geiger counter counts how many clicks per minute you get. Let's say the atmosphere today has 32. I chose that number because it's easy to divide many times, okay? In 5,700 years, it's only going to have 16. I agree. Another 5,700 years later, it's only going to have 8, then 4, then 2, then 1. If a sample gives 1 click per minute, we think it's gone through 5 half-lives. Be compared to today's 32. Everybody else gives 32. So we think it's 28,000 years old. This is the decay rate. So we look at our calibration curve and say, yep, it matches. If before the flood they had no C14 forming, maybe they only had 4 to start with. We start with 32 when we die, and it decays from there. They started with 4 when they died. So it's going to look like it's really old when actually it's not, because the initial content, you don't know the initial content of any of the samples that you're dating. You know it doesn't work on coal. We know it doesn't work on living dinosaur tissue. We know it doesn't work on living marine organisms. You don't know the initial content of anything you find in the fossil record. You can't prove how much C14 was in the atmosphere 4,000 or 10,000 years ago. Tree ring dating doesn't go back that far. It doesn't work, AJ. The purpose of the debate.
How do you know that there was no C14 forming back when you're saying that there was a layer of water around the Earth?
Well, we know that ice will stop radiation. Certain types of radiation, certain kinds of X-rays and gamma rays and beta rays cannot penetrate ice. So it would be a theory. It would be my theory. The Bible says there was water above the firmament. I believe that. We see evidence of people living a long time. Lots of historical records of people living to be 1,000 years old, the golden age kind of stuff,
Like what?
Like what? Like I just said it.
What? What's the evidence of people living 1,000 years?
Well, there are many historical anecdotes or records of people from India, from China, from non-Christian countries that say, oh, there was a golden age. Just Google golden age. The Earth had a golden age when people lived to be 1,000. That's typical story from countries all over the world. That's not proof it's true. But the fact that all these people have these same legends indicate maybe there's something to it. The Bible says they live to be 900. I believe that's true. But see, I admit, I believe by faith there was a canopy of water above because the Bible says there was one. The Jews have always taught this. They still teach it. 3 fingers thick, crystal and canopy. It does. The lines of evidence all merge together for that being true, because dinosaurs that are 80 feet long only had nostrils the same size as a horse's nostrils. How can an 80-foot animal get enough air through a little hole like that? They had to have compressed air, which a canopy would do, or richer oxygen, which we know the Earth had. Amber samples have 35% oxygen in them. So I cover all this in my seminar. All the lines of evidence merge to say one thing: the Bible is true. You're going to be judged one day by this book, whether you don't like it or not. So you can scoff at all you want, but the carbon dating doesn't work on a lot of things. You have to assume how much was in it when it died. You can't know that. You have to assume the decay rates never changed. We know that's not true.
Do you have an example of the decay rate changing?
I showed you samples from laboratories. They're saying yes, we know what affects it. You said the decay rate can change.
The decay rate of the radioactive elements decaying. Do you have evidence of that changing?
I do, right in here someplace. Let's see. Would you admit then you cannot know the initial content? You don't know how much was in it when it died. Would you at least admit that?
No,
you
I won't admit that because it's not true.
You do know how much was in it when it was alive 10 million years ago, or 50,000 years ago. Do you know how much happened?
There are ways to cross-confirm it with samples.
I disagree. You're claiming that, okay? So you know how much C14 was in the atmosphere when the coal formed?
Not in the atmosphere, in the samples.
Okay, well, the samples got it from the air they're breathing. Okay, is it in equilibrium? Has it been contaminated? Things that affect the decay rate. Tree ring dating.
Because the fundamental laws of physics would have to change for the decay rate to change. We've never seen that.
No. Well, the decay rate, 5,730 years, is half of it to decay. Could there be something to speed that up, to make half of it decay in 10 seconds? Atomic bomb explosion.
If there is, we've never seen that happen.
Well, let's see. I did find stuff on that today. It's been a busy day around here, AJ. I have more to do than take care of you, but let's see. Carbon-14 percentage. Where did I get that? The sunspot cycle impacts it. Okay. 1188. That's more the
That's the rate of C14 forming. I'm talking about the decay rate of actual radioactive elements, like how long the half-life is. We haven't seen that change.
They've only measured these half-lives in order to determine, did somebody watch it for 5,730 years? Or did they watch it for 6 weeks or a year and then extrapolate? Would you agree nobody watched it for 5,700 years? Do you agree with that?
No, because human lifespans aren't that long.
So nobody watched it for 5,700 years. So how did they determine that decay rate to be 5,730 years? They watched a sample for a short time in the laboratory and then did the math and extrapolated. I understand how that works, okay? And so nobody's watched it for 5,700 years. Let's see, Earth's magnetic field, that's C14 formation. They said in here someplace that the radiation, well, you said it can be contaminated by laboratory instrument they're using itself, or by external sources like sun's radiation or stellar radiation. We know it can be, that could knock the sample all to pieces. So that would be the decay rate. If there's, well,
that's
contaminating.
That's the rate of C14 forming in the atmosphere.
Okay.
That's different.
Okay. Well, that's contaminating the sample.
Yeah. Do you think scientists don't know about contamination and these assumptions? Do you think that you're the only person who knows about this?
Oh, both of us showed tonight examples where it does get contaminated very easily. You're dealing with a real tiny amount, like just a few atoms, a few little atoms. Okay, just a tiny amount. And you're trying to prove something's millions of years old from that decaying. Half of it's gone.
No,
you can barely count what you've got.
Okay, so I'll ask my question again. If these methods don't work, do you have an alternative for how we can date things?
Oh, yeah. Right here. God said he made everything in 6 days. God said there was a flood 4,400 years ago. That flood would make all the coal in 1 year. That flood made all the layers that we see that you guys claim are different ages, and we know they're not, from petrified trees connecting all of them, polystrata fossils. We know they're not. See, AJ, you don't want that book to be true.
What's the age layers then? If they're all the same age, do you know what that age is?
Yeah, about 4,500 years when Noah's flood took place. All the layers were formed, I believe. I think there's all kinds of ways to cross-confirm that if you wanted to have a different debate. But tonight you're supposed to be defending, does carbon-14, here we go, right here. Is carbon-14 reliable? Why should it be reliable when you admitted it doesn't work on some things? It doesn't work on over half the fossils, marine organisms. Hey, who are you? Nick, Google, how many fossils are marine? What percentage of fossils are marine organisms, okay? It doesn't work on living things, and I don't see any reason why it shouldn't.
Would you use a ruler to tell the temperature, Kent?
You're missing the point. If the atmosphere today contains a certain amount of C14, you're assuming that the plants have the same amount, they probably do, and the animals that eat the plants have the same amount. And when they die, it stops taking more in, so it only begins to decay. That's the whole dating method. So it should work on everything alive. What does it say?
Roughly
95% of the fossils are marine organisms.
That's okay, but you would agree with me that you wouldn't use a ruler to tell the temperature, right?
Correct. That's completely off topic.
Okay, so that's a limitation of the method. That doesn't mean the method itself doesn't work.
I'm telling you the ruler doesn't work because it should be 5,730. I mean, it should be 0.0000765% in living organisms. It should be in every, there shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to make any exceptions.
Why should it be the same in all organisms?
Because that's, all organisms are breathing the air and using it. All plant organisms are. They're taking in C14, making it part of their tissue. Animals are eating those plants, making it part of their tissue. You and I have C14 in us, a little tiny amount. Probably the same amount that's in the air that the plants are breathing. I wouldn't argue about that. So if you, why do you have to wait till I die to carbon date me? Carbon date it today.
Because some of the C14 has to decay for the method to work, Kent.
No, you should get a zero number if it's got the same amount in what you're dating and the same amount in the atmosphere. It worked. You got a zero. It's 0 years old. You shouldn't have to wait for it to die. How can you,
what would be the point? What would be the point of dating something that's alive?
Because I just want to do it, okay? What's the point of going to the moon? You hit a golf ball. I mean, come on. Spend billions of dollars to go hit a golf ball on the moon. Who cares? What's the point? Well, what's the point of this whole debate tonight?
There are lots of reasons to go to the moon. Do
Well,
you
go
really
ahead.
think there's no point?
As long as you're paying for it. I don't want to pay for it. Anyway, that's a different story. That's a different.
I thought you liked science, Kent.
I love science, but I'm not in favor of spending billions of dollars to go hit a golf ball on the moon. Okay, this is something that the government should not be involved in. That's a different story. Okay, politics. But the fact is, Donny, I think you get it. I'm hoping. Let's get some audience questions if you can. Is anybody else getting it? Why won't it work on living organisms? It should work on anything. It's carbon-14, which we have in us. And if the atmosphere is 0.0000765%, I should be the same and you should be the same. And the laboratory should be able to show that. It should come up, hey, this guy's still, take a sample, take your fingernail or hair or something and take it into a laboratory. Say, here, carbon date this. It should come up with, hey, this is still alive or very, very, very recently dead. Not long enough to get a difference. It's real simple math, AJ, real simple.
Gentlemen, I will say we are a minute over on the discussion because it was so fast-paced and engaging as always with you two. Appreciate these debates. So why don't we do this? AJ, if you think it's fair, you started the discussion. Therefore, we'll have Kent end the discussion here. But there might be a couple things you want to respond to, and we want to give you both the opportunity to leave no stone unturned, address anything you feel has been left hanging. So let's do this as I organize our audience questions. We've got a lot, and so we're going to have some fun with those. We'll have 3-minute closing statements. Good time to wrap up our thoughts and points for tonight. Gentlemen, excellent discussion, and I really enjoyed this debate on carbon dating. I like picking one topic, one point, and then doing a whole debate on it. Very good. So AJ, let's hand it to you. I'll reset the timer, and you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, again, my argument in this very repetitive debate is just that while there are limits to radiocarbon dating and other radiometric dating methods, that doesn't mean that the methods themselves are invalidated. And if you use a method to measure something the wrong way, you're likely going to get a wrong result. And that just shows that you're using it the wrong way. It doesn't show that the method itself is invalidated. And I think that's not a great way to show that something doesn't work. Now, my point would be, what about the samples where we know the age, we know how old something is, and then it's dated and that age matches? Why would that occur if the method doesn't work? And Kent's alternative to carbon dating seems to just be trusting the Bible. Well, which version of the Bible? There's multiple versions of it. How is that going to be a better way of dating things than a modern scientific method that's done in the laboratory, when the Bible is an archaic holy book that doesn't change? The science can only be as advanced in the Bible as it is at the time that it was written, which was the Bronze Age. So I don't see how that's going to be a better way of dating things than modern scientific methods that are done in a laboratory. As for the limitations like contamination and the assumptions that are inherent to the method, again, this is something that scientists account for. They're aware of it. It doesn't stop the method from being able to be used. Science is it is difficult to date these things. You are dating a very small amount of the element that's in there. That doesn't mean that it's impossible for it to work. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to Donny and Kent for doing this debate with me, and Donny for hosting it. So that'll do it for me.
Thank you, AJ, for that 3-minute concluding statement. We'll reset the timer. Kent, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
All right. And thank you, AJ, for coming again tonight. I agree with how carbon-14 forms. I don't argue with that. Radiation from the atmosphere, from the sun, strikes it. However, if the Earth had a crystalline canopy overhead, like the ancient legends teach and like the Bible teaches, then they wouldn't have much, because that would stop most of it. So I agree that the atmosphere today contains 78% nitrogen, mostly nitrogen, some oxygen, a little tiny bit of CO2, and a real tiny bit of radioactive CO2. Very tiny amount, okay? that combines with the other CO2, and the plants are breathing it, and they don't care whether they breathe radioactive carbon or regular carbon. I'm talking carbon dioxide, okay? I agree. Now, I agree with how it forms. I agree with the theory that it's going to decay. You and I have C14 in our body because we've either eaten plants or eaten animals that have eaten plants. So they assume that the amount in the world today is the same in all living plants and animals. That is the assumption that it's based on. That they assume the living organism should have the same. Atmosphere's got 0.000765. You and I probably should have the same amount. I agree with that. Now, let's see, 12, 16. I got way too much to cover here. Okay. This article said, with their short half-life, no carbon-14 atom should exist in anything older than 250,000 years. Some sources say 60, some say 90, okay? It's proven impossible to find any natural source of carbon below the Ice Age strata, which is no such thing, that does not contain significant amounts of C14. Even though the strata are supposed to be millions or billions of years old. The coal, the diamonds, they're supposed to be a lot older than that, but they've still got carbon-14. Laboratories are aware of this since the 1980s, and they've tried to eliminate it, but they're unable to account for it. The world's best such laboratory learned during 2 decades of low C14 measurements, I mean measuring to the atoms, how not to contaminate externally. Under contract to creationists, confirmed the observations for coal samples and a dozen diamonds. They cannot be contaminated in situ with recent carbon. Diamonds cannot. These constitute very strong evidence the Earth is only thousands, not billions of years old. But when they take a dinosaur that has a soft tissue, carbon dated, and it gives a number of a few thousand, rather than say, maybe the dinosaur isn't millions of years old, they question the dating method. They're not willing to consider, not willing to question their premise that the Earth is billions of years old and dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, because that fits the pattern that they want. It's all based on the assumption that the atmosphere has reached equilibrium. We know it has not. If you pour water into a barrel and it leaks out the other side, at some point, you're never going to fill the barrel past the point, okay? Earth's atmosphere, C14, equilibrium. It should reach equilibrium in 30,000 years. Well, Earth's atmosphere has still not reached equilibrium. Well, then we know the Earth is less than 30,000 years old, and my time is up. Watch my video number 7, AJ. Come on, better yet, come down to Dinosaur Adventure Line. Let's have the debate right here, and we'll show you around DAL. We'd love to have you, okay? Thank you.
And I'll sit right in between you guys and moderate a 7th debate. Or wait a minute, was this debate number 7, AJ? Or this was 6, right?
Depends if you count the open mics, but
that's true. If you count the open mics, this was debate number 100. So yeah, you guys are best friends by now. AJ, Kent, appreciate those closing statements. Comprehensive debate on carbon dating. That's what we need. So I appreciate it, guys. All right, let's get into some audience questions. We have many very much on topic questions. And so this should be good. We'll start at the beginning here with Shepherd. $5 super chat. Appreciate the support and question for tonight's debaters. He says it's a question for both. So Kent, you just ended with your concluding statement. AJ, if you don't mind, I guess we can start with you here. So he is asking, is there any dating method that consistently produces ages from 6,000 to 10,000 years?
That specific time frame, I'm going to say no, because carbon dating, as far as I know, is the sort of the youngest bracket of ages that they find when it comes to radiometric dating. Dating methods other than radiometric dating, possibly, but for that specific range of years, I'm going to say no. Not that I know of.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Kent, go ahead.
I'm going to say absolutely yes. If you look at my video number 1, called The Age of the Earth, how to prove the Earth cannot be billions of years old, get the whole series for $50, 18 hours. When you're done watching it, return it and get your money back, okay? For instance, the erosion rate of Niagara Falls shows it's only been eroding for less than 5,000 years. The ice rings, those are not annual rings. I talked to the guy who melted the hole down to get to the airplane from World War II, and he said there were hundreds of rings above the airplanes that landed 48 years earlier. They're not annual rings. They're summer, winter, summer, winter. I think that the thickness of the ice at the poles indicates way less than 10,000 years. I think the amount of salt in the oceans are getting saltier. Today, they're 3.6%. At the rate they're gaining salt from all the rivers running off the continents, they could have done that in less than 5,000 years. That gives a good age. The salt in the oceans, the oldest ancient historical records, the oldest language that we have, the fact that the moon is receding from the earth, the fact that the sun is burning up its fuel, the human population growth curve. Yes, there are many, many indications that the earth, 6,000, 10,000 years. In 1810, there was only 1 billion people in the world. Today, there's 8 billion. People who do the calibration curve will say, look, you could have started with 8 people getting off the ark 4,400 years ago. So the very population of the earth is an indication. We've not been here for millions of years. It's not like they didn't learn how to make babies, for millions of years. What on earth? Refresh your presentation, making changes. Okay, forget, I don't know. Keep the changes, keep mine. Okay, there. Anyway, so yes, I'll answer that in the affirmative. Yes, there are many scientific indicators that the earth simply is not billions. If it is, why hasn't the population increased, or the salt in the ocean, or the erosion rates, or the continents are eroding into the sediments in the ocean are building up? The moon is getting further away. The sun is burning up its fuel. Yes, there are lots of, watch my video number 1. I'm sorry for taking so long. Go ahead, Donny.
No problem. Okay, gentlemen, appreciate it. That was a question for both, so you both got to respond. So we'll move on to the next question. Super chat comes in from Mark Reed. This one is now specific to Kent. So Mark, $5 super chat. Appreciate the support. And here's his question. Because living organisms replace carbon-14 and we measure carbon-14 ratio, how can you use it to tell time from death of the organism?
Well, that is correct. If it has a certain amount today when it's alive, as soon as it dies, it stops taking in new C14, replacing the stuff that's decaying. So you should be able to determine the time of death, which is why I've said, Mark, it should work for something alive because it should give you a 0 age. If today is getting 16 clicks per minute on a living object, and you just send a sample of a living object to a laboratory, you should get 16 clicks per minute. If you're only getting 8 clicks per minute, you say, wow, it's been dead for 1 half-life. There should not be a problem with getting 16 clicks per minute versus 8 clicks per minute. It shouldn't. I don't know how anybody can not get that. Okay.
Well, since no lab has ever done a carbon dating, no lab has ever carbon dated a living sample, how do you know what result it would give?
Well, I think I showed you, they dated living snails, and they gave a wrong age, vastly wrong age.
Yeah, they gave the reason in that paper for why it gave that age.
Why should they have? What if you didn't even tell them it was a snail shell? Here, date this. If it contains carbon, they should be able to date it, or something seriously wrong with their thoughts. You should be able to date anything that contains carbon. Shouldn't matter if it's alive or dead or marine, or it shouldn't matter. You guys aren't getting it deliberately.
Yes, it really should.
Well,
I think you're the one who's not getting it, because it just wouldn't make any sense to do that.
Okay.
Well, because you don't want to do it. Okay, don't do it. But I think we should.
It would be a waste of time and money to do that.
No, it'd be a waste of your theory of a religion. It would just prove you're wrong. You'd have to give your heart to the Lord and get saved. That's the real problem.
Okay, here's a question. Now, that was for you, Kent. So let's get one for you, AJ. Tanya Brown, appreciate the question. If we shouldn't date living samples, how long should something be dead for before we can test it and get an accurate result?
For carbon dating, the range is about 5,000 years to 50,000 years. So I'd say about 5,000.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Kent, anything you want to add?
I still stand my ground. It should work for anything, any age. You shouldn't have to wait 5,000 years after it's dead. It should work. How do you know the amount is in the atmosphere? How do they test the amount in the atmosphere today? They can test the air today and find out how much it has. Why can't they test a living object? It should give the same number. This is real silly, Your Honor. I move for a mistrial. This guy, I win.
AJ, you can have the last word.
Well, I would just say that they are objects of known age that they've dated, and the radiocarbon results match the age that they already knew to be correct.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's see here. Next question comes in for you, Kent. Creationist crybaby. Kent, it's a misuse of carbon dating to try to date samples that are millions of years old or that have been treated with organic substances. Why do creationists often use this bad data? What are your thoughts, Kent?
Crybaby, why do you use such bad logic? Look at your question. Look at this. It's a misuse of carbon dating to try to date samples that are millions of years old. Stop, stop, stop. How do you know they're millions of years old? You have a built-in assumption in your question. I'd say it's a lousy question. So go ahead.
Thank you, Kent. AJ, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I pretty much agree with the question. I would just say that I strongly disagree with the person in the chat that said Donny is a bad moderator, and he's always moderated my debates fairly. So I disagree.
Okay.
I agree. Good job.
Well, I appreciate the love, gentlemen. Okay, let's move on to the next question then. Austin Sims, question for AJ. If radiometric dating doesn't work, like Kent says, why are we able to use it to find fossil fuels? Kent, do you think, so it looks like it's a question for both. So AJ, we'll start with you, and then Kent, his portion for you is, Kent, do you think 10% inaccuracy invalidates 90% accuracy under current usage? AJ, let's start with you.
Yeah, good. Shout out to Austin Sims. That was a good debate. So, yeah, I think that this is a good point because the fossil fuels, it's a given example of why is it that fossil fuel companies use a model of the geologic column and of the Earth that is billions of years old and not the young Earth model of being 6,000 years old, when this is an industry that is a billion or $1 trillion industry where their methods have to be correct because such a large amount of capital depends on it. So yeah, I agree that it makes sense that it's evidence that it does work since it's used to find fossil fuels.
Thank you, AJ. Kat, your turn.
Well, this is totally incorrect. They don't use any radiometric dating method to find fossil fuel. I lived in East Texas in the oil field for 5 years. I had a lot of guys in our church and students in my class whose dad worked in the oil field. I visited the oil field, Kilgore Oil Museum, 28 oil wells on 1 acre. Okay, took my students there many times. I'm very familiar with this topic. They find fossil fuels because they know the fuels are down there under certain layers, and they're all sedimentary rock. I think all that sedimentary rock formed in Noah's flood, and all the fossil fuels probably formed because of Noah's flood. Animals or plants being buried rapidly. Fossil fuels aren't forming today anywhere. It was one giant mass burial of a whole bunch of animals. And all the coal down there, there's coal seams 300 feet thick in Wyoming. That's a lot of coal. That's a lot of trees and plants. You can make coal in 20 minutes in the laboratory, but I think Noah's flood buried that pre-flood world, which was probably very different than today, probably mostly land and mostly covered with plants, where today it's 70% water and 10% ice. So I think it was a very different world like the Bible teaches, and all the coal and all the oil formed from Noah's flood. And radiometric dating would have nothing to do with finding the fossil fuels. They know if we drill through this layer or hit a limestone, because certain things are able to contain the coal, contain the oil. They have to have a capstone that's able to that's not permeable. Otherwise, the pressure would leak off and it drift somewhere else. So finding the fossil fuels has nothing to do with radiometric dating. As far as 10% inaccuracy, I never said that. I said they dated coal, they said was 37 million years old, and it came back a few thousand. That's way more than 10% inaccurate. That's like 99% inaccurate.
Okay, gentlemen, you each had a question there from Austin. You both had a chance to respond, so let's move on. Bruce G, question for you, AJ, it looks like. Would a fossil that had been immersed in water for over a year have the same amount of C14 as one that had remained dry? And how would this affect the apparent age? Go ahead, AJ.
That's an interesting question. I'm going to say that it would have the same age, and I don't think it would affect the apparent age or the results if you dated the dry wood versus the one that had been immersed in water, because it's marine organisms that intake C14 from their environment. I don't know if wood just being dipped in water would change that, but it's an interesting question. So I'm not totally sure on that, but I'm going to say that no, I don't think it would affect the age.
Thank you, AJ. Kent, go ahead.
Well, we know the other dating methods, like potassium decays to argon. We know that can be affected. 80% of the potassium in an iron meteorite can be removed and distilled water in 4.5 hours. So I'll do some checking. Could it affect carbon-14 dating? We know that they would claim that's the source of contamination, since the water might have some C14 dissolved in it. So I don't know, but we know that conventional data, they discard ages that are too high or too low compared to the geologic time scale. Canadian Journal of Earth Science. That's how they really date it, not with any of these dating methods. Okay. KBS Tough, the layers are dated by the fossils they find, not by any dating method, carbon-14 or potassium argon. If they need to try to rescue something, they'll call in an expert in potassium argon dating. But it's a giant Ponzi scheme. The whole thing. It's baloney. Go ahead.
It's all a big conspiracy theory. It's all fake.
You admitted it. Thank you so much, AJ. I knew you'd come around. Thank you.
Yes, Ken knows more than the scientists.
No, I am a scientist. Yeah.
All right, guys. Appreciate the banter. Always fun. You guys are good sports. Okay. Echoing erudite. Appreciate the question. Again, we've had a lot of questions specific to the topic, carbon dating. So people have really enjoyed this. We've still got over 320 people enjoying this. So here we go, AJ. Carbon has been found in diamonds, and diamonds can be made in the lab from living remains. Why is a young age for them unlikely, but all samples being contaminated is likely?
Well, I'm not sure about the diamonds that are made from living remains, about what kind of date that would give, or why you would date those in the first place. But my answer to the question would just be because we have other methods of confirming the older dates, like tree rings, like ice cores, and yeah. So we don't have cross confirmation for the younger ages. That's why I think it's more likely that it's contamination. And contamination isn't the only reason I gave.
Thank you, AJ. Kent, floor is yours.
Well, AJ's brought up the ice cores quite a few times here. AJ, I went and talked to the guy who dug out the airplane in Greenland that landed in World War II. Okay, I'll give you his phone number right here. Okay, the Lost Squadron down 263 feet of ice in 48 years. They melted a hole down, took it apart, brought the pieces up. It still flies today in Middleborough, Kentucky for air shows. You can go visit it. In the ground, 48 years. 5.5 feet a year, ice accumulates, and many, many layers each year. There he is. I talked to Bob Cardin at the museum, and I said, when you went down to get the airplane out, did you go through ice rings? He said, many hundreds of them. I said, how do you get many hundreds of annual layers in 48 years? He said, who told you those are annual rings? Each one is summer, winter, it's warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold. You get 3 of those in 1 week. So those are not annual rings. Whoever did that, whoever taught you that lied to you, AJ. And I'm sure you liked that information because, hey, it goes against the Bible and you don't like this book. That's the real reason. But talk to Bob Cardin. There it is, thelostsquadron.com. I don't know who's in charge now. This was, 20 years ago. But there were many hundreds of layers. Quit mentioning ice cores. You're going to stop using that in your script now?
No, I don't have a script.
But are you going to stop using it as evidence?
Why would I stop using it? Just because you think it's wrong?
Well, talk to the guy.
Are you going to stop saying that we carbon date living organisms?
You're changing the subject. I just asked a simple question. I think
the answer was
obvious.
No.
The layers are not different ages. The ice rings are not annual rings. Okay.
Was that guy who dug out the plane, was he a scientist?
No, he's stupid. He's wrong. Yeah.
So he's never measured an ice core. He's never actually interacted with an ice core. He just dug a plane out of the ground.
Well, I went to the laboratory where they store the ice cores. When I was, let's see, ice cores are stored right here. Here's the picture of them storing the ice core. Come on now. So this is another topic of debate. You can get many layers in a few, there's ice cores stored in these tubes, okay? National Ice Core Laboratory in Denver, Colorado. Anyway, that's a different topic. Okay, you're not going to quit using it because that helps support your theory and your rejection of God. Okay.
Well, there are air bubbles in there where they can actually tell what the ancient atmosphere was like. So.
All right, gentlemen. Next debate, the great ice core debate.
Maybe.
Shepard's got a question for the both of you. $10 super chat. Appreciate it. Okay. Isn't it interesting that biblical items / sites C14, since Moses nearly always dates accurately with biblical dates? Why not accurate for 4,500-year-old strata? AJ, did you want to start?
Well, if the question is if it's interesting or not, I'm going to say that it is not, because I don't know if I agree with this claim. And I don't know if strata is as young as 4,500 years old. But yeah, I don't. I think strata is usually measured in the millions of years and not thousands.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Kent, any thoughts?
I think all the strata formed in one big Noah's flood. I think each layer is a different tide. 6 hours, 12 and a half minutes apart. Nothing to do with millions of years. Petrified trees that are standing up, connecting all the layers, are pretty clear evidence. The layers cannot be millions of years old. If you want to question that, you can, but show you the evidence. Of course, evidence means nothing to some people, but here we go. I can't find
agree.
it. Yeah, sad, AJ. Okay, here we go. Alt DV. There we go. Okay. So I've covered this many, many times, and they always go on to a new topic.
Well, if I can go on to a new topic really quickly, Kent, did you ever find evidence for the trial of Haeckel from our embryology debate?
I did. Somebody sent me some stuff on that. I put it in my slide presentation. That's a different topic, but for tonight. But yes, there was a trial. It's not an official court trial. The university held a trial against their own professor, and somebody from Germany did some research and said, yeah, that really did happen. But even if they didn't, you're missing the point. The fact is, he lied about the gill slits. Whether there was a trial or not doesn't matter. He lied about the embryos having gill slits. Are you going to stop using embryology as one of the evidences for your religion? Or are you going to keep using that?
I don't have a religion, and I am going to keep using that one. And that was a fun debate. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, okay.
Throwback to the great embryology debate. Kent, were you about to present something, or were we moving on to the next?
I've got too many things open right now in my presentation, and I can't get it to work, man. Plus, I'm a little slow on computer skills here. But okay, no, go ahead. Take some more questions. Then I got to quit, Donnie. I've been building the ark all day. I'm tired.
And you've been up before breakfast, brother.
I had to get up before. It was awful.
We'll wrap it up with 2 more questions, okay? One for each of you, and then we're going to let you both get out of here for the night and get some sleep. Get some well-deserved sleep. Jesus saves. Question for AJ. Appreciate the question. Considering that written language is traced back to 5,000 to 6,000 years, doesn't it make sense that since humans were created, they started writing? Why didn't man start writing sooner?
Well, one reason is that this is the evidence of written language goes back that far. There could be writings that were not preserved. Like Kent in one of his recent videos said that clay tablets are a good way to preserve things. I don't agree with that. I think the best way to preserve things is like with metal. Like we have coins from shekels from biblical times in coins that have Augustus Caesar's face on them because metal lasts so long. But clay, like cuneiform tablets and things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, parchments, don't last as long. And another reason is just that human evolution, just because humans may have existed at a certain time, it still would have taken a long time for them to develop the intelligence to have a written language and to start writing and to save their writings. Because for a long time, we had the oral tradition of just stories were passed on just via speaking, and they weren't written down. And it wasn't until much later that written language even occurred. So that would be my answer to that question.
Thank you, AJ. Kent, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, his prejudice is oozing off the page here. He says humans weren't smart enough to do this. He's stuck with the assumption, his religion teaches, that we slowly evolved from an amoeba up through finally got to apes, and then the apes became a human. This is typical evolution propaganda. By the way, I found my polystrata fossils, petrified trees standing up. Okay, so he starts with that assumption, and then he can't. So it took man a while to get smart enough to learn to read and write. I would take the opposite. I think man was much smarter in the past, probably knew things we don't know today. And I think we can't move, like we couldn't move 70-ton stones and cut them to precision like they did for the pyramids and ancient temples and stuff like that. So I think that the evidence is overwhelming. The ancient man was really smart, and probably I think Adam was created the first day. He could walk, talk, name all the animals, and get married. Very smart fellow.
Did he speak English?
Yeah, Southern, y'all. He spoke Alabamian.
AJ?
And the Garden of Eden was right here in Lenox, Alabama. Come see it.
AJ, you want a final word, or you want to go to our last question?
I would just say that I'm pretty sure that's what the Mormons think, is that the Garden of Eden is in Mississippi. But yeah,
Missouri.
I don't have a comment.
Yeah, Missouri.
The Garden of Eden is in Ontario, Canada. So we've all got our own Garden of Eden. So here we go. Final question for tonight's great carbon dating debate. Round 6 between AJ and Ken. Ken, here you go. From the local hooligan. Do you have any opinions on other forms of radiometric dating, such as potassium argon or uranium to lead, as the half-lives measured are much longer than C14? Go ahead.
We have the very same problem, identical problem. Do you know how much was in it when it was created or died? In the case of a rock, not born, okay? You can't know how much was in it. We know how fast it decays today. That's it. End of story. You can test a sample and find out how much is in it. You could take a sample and say how much potassium is in this, and they could find out pretty accurately. Let's assume I won't argue that. I assume their measuring process is accurate. You don't know what it started with. You don't know that the decay rate's always been the same, and you don't know it's never been contaminated. The same 3 arguments for any of the dating methods, any of them. They'd all fall into, in a court of law, they'd all be thrown out, an honest court of law. Okay. Yes, I do have stuff on video number 7 about that topic. I don't have slides in front of me quickly. I got 50,000 slides, but 70,000 now. So I could find, if you want to have a debate on potassium argon dating or rubidium strontium or lead 208, lead 206, pick which one you want, AJ, and I'll get stuff ready for it.
Sounds like a good debate for 2025. AJ, any thoughts? Anything you wanted to add?
Not really. I will, I guess, mention the heat problem that if you take the half-lives of elements like uranium that has a half-life in the billions of years, and you want to say that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, all that radiometric decay, compressing that amount of radiometric decay into such a short time, I think would cause a lot of problems on the Earth because of the amount of heat released when radioactive elements decay. So that's one example of the heat problem, which I forgot to bring up during my debate.
AJ bringing the heat with the heat problem. Kent, what do you got to say to that?
He's got a very obvious assumption, which a 4th grader could see. He's assuming all the daughter product we have came from the parent product. If uranium decays to lead, isn't lead a pretty useful product? Maybe God made some lead to start with. You're assuming it all had to decay from uranium, which, by the way, is way up on the periodic table, and you have no way how uranium can form, fusion past iron. You can't get uranium from stars. So anyway, so yeah, that giant assumption in his thinking process, he revealed it very clearly. He's going to say we have to have all this lead come from uranium. No, you don't. Maybe all the lead was created. Maybe 1% has decayed. I don't know. But again, you don't know the initial content, what I've been saying all night.
All right, Ken, AJ, that concludes our Q&A. Lots of fun, as always, with the audience questions. A lot of audience interaction tonight on both sides. So good mix in the chat for both sides of tonight's debate, creation, evolution. Okay, guys, if we could, real quick, final words, final thoughts. AJ, appreciate you doing this. Thank you for your time. Hope you had a good time. Let's hand it to you for some final words, final thoughts.
Yeah, if you think lead is useful, Kent, try using lead paint or leaded gasoline would be my response to that. And yeah, I'm not sure. I think Mark Reed might be having an after show for this debate. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, I'll be hanging out there a little bit later if that does happen. But yeah, just I enjoyed the debate, so thank you, Donny, for hosting it, and for Kent for coming on.
My
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Kent, any final words? Thanks for doing this. Appreciate your time.
No, I'm done. Thank you, brother.
All right. Bedtime. Appreciate it, guys.
Bye.
Kent, AJ, we'll talk to the two of you a little bit later. All right, there we go, guys. That flew by. 2 hours just like that. I feel like we were just sitting backstage, Kent, AJ, and myself discussing the details of the debate. These debates, creation, evolution, carbon dating, embryology, which Kent and AJ debated a couple debates ago, whale evolution. These are always just a ton of fun. Some of my favorite debates, and they really do fly by. They're fast paced. They're engaging. Very entertaining, and I do appreciate how interactive our live chat is. Yeah, 2 hours. You never realize how quickly 2, 3, and even sometimes 4 hours flies by until you host a really good, thought-provoking debate. So just a real excellent way to spend a couple hours. Echoing Erudite says this was a fun, relaxing debate to watch. Yeah, it was. Even from my position as moderator and host, it was very relaxing. At this point, Kent and AJ are experts at engaging each other. And so they know how to banter. They're good sports. They know how to give us a good, solid, engaging debate. So I don't really find it necessary for me to jump in all the time. I can kind of just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. So, okay, guys, let's go over some. We got Praise I Am in the chat, who is going to be here for quite the debate in 2 nights. We've got the much anticipated epic debate showdown between seasoned debaters, 2 worldviews, 2 completely different viewpoints. Praise I Am and Grayson Hawk. They're going to be debating God versus non-God worldview. Which is true? What a question it is indeed. And so Praise I Am he's shocked because he just realized he has this debate. So Praise, you got a couple days to prep. Just kidding. He knows about it. So it's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of fun. AJ says, thanks, guys. Thank you. You know, if it weren't for all of the time that these debaters, our guests, give us and offer us for these debates, we wouldn't have so many excellent, thought-provoking debates on so many different topics: creation, evolution, soteriology, eschatology, nature of God. We do like to give you a diversity of topics, as we want to make sure that there is content and material for just about everybody. And so if you're not interested in creation, evolution, but you like end times theology or maybe some soteriology, there will be content for you. So I always appreciate the time that our debaters offer us for these exchanges. And okay, thought I saw another comment that I wanted to address, but the chat is moving quickly. Appreciate that. Doki Doki Bible Club. If you're not yet subscribed, but you like debates, you like interviews, open mics, discussions, we have many open mics planned for 2025. We've got a lot in the works in terms of programs, debates, podcasts. We are working on a couple, at least, new podcasts we'll be recording soon. And also books, articles, and some in-person stuff, some really cool in-person stuff for 2025 that I am quite excited for. So if you're not yet subscribed, you don't want to miss that stuff. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Jacob Emmanuel, my brother, appreciate you being here. Always good to have you for a hangout. Doki Doki Bible Club, SFT Ministries, website, standfortruthministries.com. Do make sure you're taking advantage of our website. From our website, you can find our Creationist Clothing website, as well as my wife's website, JB Natural Skincare. Do check that out. Always lots of good deals, good bargains, especially for Christmas season, the holiday season coming up. So take advantage of that. Okay, guys, we have another several programs for everybody this week. Tomorrow, I will be back here. I'm very excited for this. This is going to be very comprehensive. So for those that love end times theology, we are going to be here. I'm going to be here with Pastor Jason Robinson. He really knows his stuff on end times theology. He's done a whole series on Revelation, a whole series on Daniel, and just a whole general series on all things eschatology. So I'm going to be here tomorrow. We're probably going to start at 8:30 EST. Pastor Robinson and I will be giving about an hour to an hour and a half. We're going to have a discussion / presentation defending or showing everybody why the Bible teaches premillennialism, post-tribulation, pre-wrath rapture. And so for those that disagree, we know that there's at least a couple preterists that are going to be joining us, but we are looking for more pre-tribulation rapturists. So those that believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, we are going to be engaging that topic extensively for the first hour to an hour and a half. So if you want to join, so the first part of the show, again, we're just going to be discussing and presenting on what we believe, that what we are confident the Bible teaches on end time theology. Then we're going to open it up for some live open mic, some questions, some debate. So it's going to be fun. We just did that, as a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago on James 2. I was here with Pastor Jason Robinson. Same thing, a comprehensive examination of James 2. We spent about an hour and a half or so addressing James 2, probably one of the most comprehensive videos and experiences that you're going to find online dealing with James 2, a very controversial chapter. As a matter of fact, we dealt with the entire book of James. And so do check that out. And then we open it up for some open mic Q&A and debate. So it should be fun. Then on Friday, we got the much anticipated Friday night showdown between Praise I Am and Grayson Hawk. And Saturday, we're going to end the week with a bang, the much anticipated great salvation debate rematch between Charles Jennings from Layman Seminary and Sean Griffin from Kingdom in Context. They will be here for an epic soteriology showdown. So definitely don't want to miss that one. Then we'll be kicking off next week with a debate here between Katrina Cook and Gary on the question, is the Bible true and reliable? Should be good. It's always nice to get new faces, new debaters here on the Standing for Truth debate platform. So this will be both Katrina and Gary's first time here on the Standing for Truth debate platform. So should be a good one. I mean, definitely a good debate resolution here. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what points and arguments they're both going to be using and presenting for that debate. Huge one here to kick off the year of 2025. Doctors Jerry Bergman and Dan Stern Cardinal, both seasoned in the world of creation, evolution, origins, and ancestry. They are a couple of PhDs here. They are going to be discussing or debating the topic of common design versus common descent. And I am pumped for this one. This is going to be a very technical, scholarly, a professional, scientific event. And so it is up on the channel. If you haven't yet hit the notification bell on that one, make sure to do so. Now, another one we have coming up in just about a week or two, is this one. We've had this one set for a while. Doctors Fuzz Rana and Robertson Jenis, another couple seasoned, experienced debaters, both very, very knowledgeable on the topic of the age of the earth. And this will be on December 16th. I am very excited for it. Young earth creation versus old earth creation. You definitely don't want to miss that one. Another big one coming towards the end of the year here the great Age of the Earth debate showdown between T-Rock and Planet Peterson. Both are powerhouses in a way in the debate world. Planet Peterson was here just recently for a couple with Kent. T-Rock, he's had many debates. Planet Peterson is very active on his channel. And so I think this is going to be just a really good all-around debate. 2025, early 2025, we've got a good solid debate here on the hermeneutics of the Age of the Earth from the Bible. Is the Bible agnostic about the Age of the Earth? Ben Kissling, he was here just a month or two ago. We engaged William Lane Craig's book, The Historical Adam. Ben has also written an extensive article on creationministries.com. And Curious Christianity has been here many times as well for debates. So both experienced, both well-studied. And I think this is going to be a really fantastic debate. And we'll be ending the year with this end of the year, 2024, all things creation event. Myself, Matt Naylor, Matt Powell. It's going to be a creationist hangout. We'll be here for some live audience questions. We are going to respond to some videos, go over some funny memes related to the Origins controversy. We may open it up for some live interaction as well in terms of open mic, Q&A, some discussion. So that's going to be a good one, guys. And this is just a sneak preview. This is really just a teaser into what we have for everybody in the coming months. I am now booking all the way into February and March. So if you want to get yourself into the schedule, if you want to get yourself a debate on creation, evolution, or a theology related topic, please do reach out, standingfortruthministries.com, and I will do my best to set you up with an interlocutor and we'll get you on the schedule. And last thing I want to point out is check our secondary channel. If you're not yet subscribed to that one, I do re-upload and premiere a lot of our older material and sometimes novel material too. And so do check it out. Young Earth Creation. We just hit 30,000 subscribers there. And for the holiday season, we're advertising several of our ministry books. This one on end times theology, all things eschatology. You'll find discussion in this book. I wrote this. It's over 300 pages. You'll find detailed information on what? Well, the timing of the rapture, the millennium, futurism versus preterism. You'll find discussion on the coming beast system of Revelation, discussion on dispensationalism. So take advantage of that one. You can get that on Amazon. And then also our Creationist Clothing website. Do check that out as we've released new shirts. This is our new quality over quantity shirt. This is me and Matt showing off some of our shirts here. So you can get this, this cool one, the March of Progress in terms of evolution, but with a good creation Christian spin. Our famous Devolution shirt. I've received lots of messages and emails from people who really like this shirt. They like wearing it out as well. It's a good discussion generator. Rescue device shirt, and then our SFT shirt, which comes in multiple colors, like my favorite color, blue. So again, check out the website Creationist Clothing, and you can get yourself some really cool SFT gear. And okay, guys, I am going to wrap it up there. I hope everybody had as much fun as I did for tonight's great carbon dating debate. Specifically, the question is carbon dating reliable between Atheist Junior and Dr. Dino. They never disappoint. One day we're going to have to take all of their debates so far, I think 6 formal, and put it into a DVD collection series. And maybe we'll wait till they get to 10, and then we'll do a whole DVD collection series, Kent versus AJ. All 6, I think, again, might be 7, 6 or 7. They've taken place here, and I have enjoyed every single one of them. And so, okay, guys, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all of the live interaction. Stacy C, thank you. I appreciate the support there, sister. And okay, yeah, God bless you as well, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Again, we'll be back here tomorrow night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then Monday night. And so we've basically got shows almost every single day for everybody. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in, and Standing for Truth is out.